But such claims of remorse rang hollow after the prosecution today relayed the contents of 2 phone calls he'd made from prison just days after pleading guilty. In one, he says to the woman he's called that he wants to put out a public statement, just to say it was mega lols, I don't know what everyone is getting so freaked out about. Lols is often construed as meaning laugh out loud. Mega lols, a phrase used by his band while they were touring. When the woman suggested that she wasn't sure that this was the right statement, he replied, "No, it's just lols now." He sat at the end of the dock, in silence, hair neatly styled, the suit 3-piece. And along from him the 2 mothers, heads bowed, one sentenced to 14 years in prison, the other 17 years. They can't be named to protect their children's identities. It's not possible, said the judge, to assess what psychological harm those children will suffer from such a betrayal. Earlier, barristers for the 2 women offered their brief portraits. There was the young mother who, it was claimed, allowed herself to be taken into the darkest of places, desperate to keep Watkins the man whom she'd become infatuated with. Then there was the other young woman who had a personality disorder, it was stated, the exceptionally lonely fan who became hooked on the excitement of the life and attention Watkins appeared to be showering upon her. Should Ian Watkins have been stopped before getting to these women and their children is now proving an increasingly awkward question for South Wales Police and others. Last night, a former partner of Watkins told us she reported him at least 8 times over 4 years to various forces before his arrest. And today, the police watchdog, the IPCC, confirmed they'd now identified as many as 5 forces who since 2009 had passed on information about Watkins to South Wales Police.
We know that the public has key questions about whether this man could have been brought to justice earlier. We have those questions as well, and we will robustly and rigorously and thoroughly investigate till we get to the bottom of it.
As Watkins was driven away from court today, South Wales Police announced they're now liaising with other forces across the United States and Germany, trying to trace any other victims. But they know one day they'll have to explain publicly what really happened when those earlier reports about this man were being made.
Well, Andy Davis is in Cardiff now in pretty appalling weather. Andy, where now for the investigation?
Well, this investigation, Jackie, appears to be widening all the time. South Wales Police are convinced that there are other victims of Ian Watkins out there. Remember, this is a man who, with his group, the Lostprophets, toured extensively. So he had a very extensive and young fan base to exploit. We've learned today that there are a number of forces in the UK who are involved in this investigation. The agency is involved. It
takes me a while.
Well, now, I'm sorry about that. We lost Andy Davis precisely because of that weather, I suspect. But I think you got the gist of what he was saying. We're joined now from Cardiff by Janet Pickles, Head of Child Protection Advice and Support at the NSPCC. And this does seem to have been an absolutely extreme case. This is not the sort of thing you normally come across, right, even in cases of child abuse.
It is rare. It's celebrity, and that gives it a lot of media coverage. But what we know from young people is that 1 in 20 is sexually assaulted at some point in their lives, and that's quite a powerful number. If you think about a small city such as Cardiff, there are 200 young people going through the sexual assault centre in the city every year. So if you extrapolate that across the UK, it's significant numbers. And we know that sex offenders, paedophiles, are prolific, but he has certainly heightened the profile.
But the really utterly shocking thing here was the tender age of the youngest of his victims.
Well, no child is safe from a paedophile, and that's why we all have to be vigilant. It's about young people, children and young people, being able to talk to family members, professionals, teachers, and what we know from when we talk to young people is that they don't tell anyone. They're very scared to tell anyone. They're very scared to tell teachers, they're very scared to tell their friends in case they then fall out with their friends and it gets spread around. But these were babies, and it was about the extended family. It was about those other people who should love and care for those children because their mothers failed to do so and failed to protect them.
I think the other dimension which I think people will find particularly shocking was the complicity of the women. I mean, again, is that something that you ever find any pattern of?
Well, there always have been women sex offenders. You'll probably remember the Vanessa George case in Plymouth, where she was a nursery worker, and that was quite shocking that she was taking images of sexually abusing children and broadcasting them around a ring of other like-minded people. But without a doubt, Watkins met those two young women when they were fans. He used his celebrity status. All sex offenders, all paedophiles are strategic in the way that they work. They will groom, and with the added advantage of celebrity status as he had, he was in a position where he could easily lead people to do things that they wouldn't normally have done. Whether or not that's mitigation is another thing.
Well, I'm just wondering, whether as somebody so experienced in this work, whether the NSPCC has learnt anything from this case, or whether, tragically, it has really only served to kind of actually accentuate what you already knew.
I think what it has done is it's caused an increase in the calls both to our adult helpline, which is there for any adult who has concerns about a child. We've seen an increase in about 70% in referrals from the adult helpline, and it's seen an increase in the calls to Childline as well. So what we've learned from this is that children do get sexually abused, and that can happen to babies. And that's a big reminder, I think, to us all that we're all responsible. We're all responsible for keeping children safe.
Janet Pickles from the NSPCC, thank you very much indeed for joining us.